Welcome back to another We Ourselves video, and today I'll be talking about the final episode of the Ahsoka series entitled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Basically, the episode begins with Thrawn discovering where the Jedi ship has landed, so he sends 2 TIE fighters to take care of him. Meanwhile, our group of heroes, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, they're really taking their time and don't seem very rushed, even though the show established that there is a 3-day window for them to get things done and to stop Thrawn. They only get into gear after Thrawn's TIE fighters arrive and disable their ship. Now they are in a hurry to get to Thrawn, so they get on the Howlers and they ride to the Night Sister Temple. Meanwhile, Morgan is surprised when the Night Sisters actually elevate her, and this answers a question that everybody had about why doesn't she look like the original Night Sisters? Well, apparently once you're elevated and your status is raised and you're given more access to the dark magic that they use, it also changes your face and gives you more of the distinctive features and scars. And then very quickly after that, they conjure her a sword, the Sword of Towson, and everybody knows exactly why Morgan is being given that sword. She's going to have a rematch with Ahsoka, and that's exactly what happens later. And once Thrawn finds out that his 2 TIE fighters have been destroyed, he tells Captain Enoch to prepare for a ground assault. No pun intended, that's a grand word or phrase to use for 3 people riding up on horseback, basically. But anyway, it's a ground assault. Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, they're on 2 Howlers and they ride up to the Night Sister Temple, and Thrawn tells his Captain Enoch to rain fire or hell down on him, and so the Star Destroyer starts blasting the ground with the turbo laser fire. But of course, our heroes are able to evade all the enemy fire, and then you have Ahsoka and Ezra use their Jedi power to open the door so they can ride through. Why Ahsoka tells Sabine to raise her hand when Sabine hasn't accessed the Force yet, I guess maybe Ahsoka thought that would inspire her to tap into her power. But anyway, they get inside and immediately they run into the Night Troopers, and again they take them down, and we see Sabine actually blocking laser fire with her lightsaber. But of course, she isn't as good as Ezra and Ahsoka, so Ahsoka tells her to use her pistol, so she takes out her pistols. They're able to overcome that group, but then we cut back to Thrawn, and he has the Night Sisters, the mothers, use their dark magic, and what they do is they reanimate the dead stormtroopers. And now we understand why Thrawn asked Morgan if all of these people were aware of what they were volunteering for, because it's clear that they were told that if they were killed, that their bodies would be reanimated. And so that happens. The stormtroopers, they're reanimated. They're basically like walking zombies. And of course, our 3 heroes are having a problem taking them down, so they run, and the stormtroopers pursue. And while this is happening, Thrawn tells Morgan, who again is constantly surprised by everything that's happened, even though I don't understand that. He tells Morgan that the 3 Jedis have made it into the temple and that they will probably make it on the ship unless they are distracted, and so she's to remain behind to distract them. And of course, we can see on Morgan's face, she realizes that Thrawn is leaving her behind, and so he leaves. Our 3 heroes eventually find their way to Morgan. And even though Morgan was told by Thrawn to stop the Jedis, to delay them, when she confronts Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, they want to confront Morgan, but Ahsoka tells the other 2, no, you have to stop Thrawn. And even though Morgan is there to stop all 3 of them, she allows Sabine and Ezra to walk past her and go on to try to get on the ship, so that she can have a personal battle with Ahsoka. Now, of course, the show was setting this up, and it's a really good choreographed fight, and it's reminiscent of the fight that they had back in The Mandalorian. I have to wonder if Morgan didn't stop the other 2 because she was still silently pissed with Thrawn for leaving her behind. We don't know because we don't get any character development for Morgan. She literally stands around the entire show until she has this fight with Ahsoka, and then she's dead. And to me, it was one of the most wasted characters in the show. But anyway, I'll talk about that later. Sabine and Ezra, they make it to the top of the platform. The ship is pulling away. They have to fight with 2 dark troopers. And here we finally see Sabine use the Force for the first time when she calls her lightsaber to her. She grabs her lightsaber, she uses it, she kills the Dark Trooper, then she picks up her pistol and shoots the one that's coming towards Ezra. And it's only then that Ezra seems to remember that he can call a lightsaber to himself, and he does so, and he cuts the Dark Trooper's head off. Now Sabine is almost to the level of a Rey because she just learned how to pull a weapon to herself using the Force. Now she's ready to sling Ezra over to the ship. And so Ezra jumps. He's putting a lot of trust in somebody who just used the Force for the first time, but yet she's able to push him the rest of the way so he makes it to Thrawn's ship. Again, pulling that lightsaber to you is different from pushing another larger object across a chasm or opening. They're two different types of use of the Force, but like I said, she's suddenly scaled up to almost a Rey type level in this episode. Ahsoka finally makes it up to the top of the platform. Ezra's on the ship, and he watches as Sabine goes back to help Ahsoka, and they are able to hold back the stormtroopers. And of course, Ahsoka defeats Morgan, and when Morgan dies, I have to say that I didn't really feel anything because we never really spent any time with her. She was almost a one-note bad guy, and it made no sense because there's so much more that character could have been, and I'm going to do a separate video that's going to talk about that. Ezra's on the ship and he's leaving, and Sabine and Ahsoka try to catch up with Thrawn, but of course Thrawn is ready to shoot back to their own galaxy, and before he leaves he makes a final taunt at Ahsoka because Thrawn met Anakin Skywalker, and then later he worked with Vader, and he was able to tell that they were the same person. And now that he knows Ahsoka was trained by Anakin, he's basically taunting her by saying that he wonders if she's going to turn out the way Anakin did. And that's his parting shot at Ahsoka. They go into hyperspace and they're gone, and now Ahsoka and Sabine are now trapped on this planet, and Ezra goes back to the home galaxy. And in this scene, a bird lands nearby and Ahsoka's looking at it, and this is the first hint or Easter egg of something greater to come in the second season. This particular bird is called a convor bird, and the actual name from the Clone Wars series is Morai, and it follows Ahsoka around after her experience in the world between worlds. And it is also an avatar or a representation of one of the ancient gods of Mortis, or Mortis gods, in this case, the daughter. And later when we catch up with Baylan, we're going to see representations of all three, the daughter, the son, and the father, as well as the mother, Abeloth. At this point, we catch up with the story of Shin and Baylan, who haven't been in this episode until this point. First, we see Shin. She finds a band of marauders and she takes out her lightsaber and holds it above her head. Some people speculate that she's going to take over the band. I didn't read it as that way. I read it as her showing power and maybe reminding them that they had already worked with her. And I really feel that she's going to join the band. She might be an important figure in it, but I think this is part of her, not redemption, because I don't think she needs to be redeemed because she's not a Jedi, she's not a Sith. I just think it's going to be her growing up the way that Baylan wanted her to do. And so I think that's going to be part of her story in the second season. Then we switch to Baylan, and probably one of the biggest Easter eggs for all the people that know what it represents. Baylan has found the huge statue of the Mortis gods. He's actually standing on the outstretched hand of the father, and to the left you see the son, and on the right you should see the daughter, but it looks like her statue has been partially destroyed. The head is gone and there's a break in the mountainside. But anyway, Baylan's standing on the outstretched hand of the father, of the Mortis gods, and it reverses angle and you can see where he's looking, and you can see a pulsing light on a distant mountain. Now, all the fanboys are speculating that that's Abeloth, and essentially, Abeloth is probably considered like the mother of the Force, and in the written legend, she was seen as more as a dark force, a negative force. I don't know how they're going to play it this time, but I have a feeling they may not play it that way. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. And it's also sad that the actor died, and I hope that they recast so they can continue on this particular storyline, because I think potentially it's going to be really important for the Star Wars universe. We see a shot with Thrawn and his ship in the home galaxy, and they're going to Dathomir because apparently he made a deal with the Night Sisters to deliver all their coffins and their people to that home world. We cut to Ezra. He's stolen a shuttle. He's approached the New Republic fleet, and he went through whatever he needed to go through for them to escort him to one of their ships where Hera's waiting. And then he walks out. He should have had the helmet off first, but no, he walks out as if this is going to fool anybody, any of the people watching. He finally takes his helmet off after Chopper recognizes who he is, and it reveals that he's home. And so you have that, but they don't even show them hugging or anything. They cut before you see that. And the last shot is with Sabine and Ahsoka back with the mobile home people. Sabine thinks she sees something in the distance, but then she says, well, no, she didn't see anything. Ahsoka looks, and it's hard to tell if she actually notices that Anakin's ghost has shown up or not. But anyway, the show ends with Anakin's ghost watching her. And I'm going to say this again. When I did my review of Shadow Warrior, I said in that review that the Anakin you saw in Ahsoka's mind or dream or near-death experience was not the real Anakin Force Ghost. I truly believe that Anakin never showed up to her, and that was part of her issue. He never showed up to her as a ghost because she needed to go on her dark journey. She needed to do her shadow work. She needed to make peace in herself with everything that he taught her versus what he became. She needed to do all of that before he would ever show up to her as a Force ghost. And at the end of that episode, when you see her kind of smile when she's still out of it, and she says, Anakin, I think that's the first time she ever experienced Anakin's Force ghost appearing to her. And now at the end of the first season, you see his actual Force ghost has shown up, and he's going to be interacting with her and guiding her. So I still hold with my belief that that was not the actual Anakin that she was dealing with in Shadow Warrior. I have to say that my overall feeling for the show, despite some nice special effects, seeing characters from Rebel show, animated show, which I like, brought to life, I have to say that my overall impression of this show or feeling is frustration. And it's frustration because this show could have been so much more. If there was ever a show that needed more of the Andor treatment, meaning that you really should have delved more into the individual story arcs of the individual characters and showed how those interacted and how they all came to a head at critical points. If there was ever a Star Wars show that needed that layering of character development and storytelling, this one needed it because this story literally spanned 2 galaxies. But you had so many characters that were not developed. You had characters in universe who should know things, but because the writers wanted to give information to casual viewers, they had characters act as if they didn't know certain things so that they can mention it for the first time and convey that information to the audience. And for me, to me, that's just sloppy writing. Too many times the characters had conflicting motivations, both the villains and the heroes. I've already talked about how the heroes want to stop Morgan from rescuing Thrawn, and the only way to do that is basically to destroy her ship. Yet, some of the heroes at the same time want to save Ezra, who's in another galaxy, and the only way to do that is to use Morgan's ship. And so you have them at cross purposes for no real good reason. And the same thing happened with Thrawn. His biggest thing is time. He wants to delay his enemies so that they run out of time and he can leave them, strand them in this other galaxy. I don't think he really wants to kill them. I think he wants them to have to go through the same thing he went through. He wants to strand them, and he could do that. But over and over, he keeps poking the hornet's nest. In my previous video, I commented on how he watched Ahsoka hide in the debris field, and he makes a comment that Jedi are good at hiding. If he wanted her to waste her time and run the clock down, all he had to do was, okay, maybe you have the Night Sisters locator, but don't do anything. Keep a watch on it, calculate her courses of action, either going down to the planet to help Ezra and Sabine or attacking the ship. Calculate that and be ready for either one, but let her waste her time and you don't have to expend any resources. But instead, he pokes the hornet's nest, he flushes her out, and basically forces her to go forward, which is eventually going to come back on him. And again, in this episode, they know where the Jedi ship is. He's on the verge of getting out of there. The Jedi ship is not coming towards them. They are on a leisurely Sunday stroll with the mobile Noti people, and they aren't even doing anything. They're wasting their time, but once again, because the show needs action, Thrawn goes against his own stated wish to make them run out of time. What does he do? He pokes the hornet's nest by sending 2 of his TIE fighters there. They get destroyed, no less. But what does it do? It galvanizes Ahsoka, somebody who was trained by Anakin. Her fundamental nature is different from Anakin. She's much more likely not to do something and be more deliberative, where Anakin would jump in. So what does he do? He says he knows this. He pokes the hornet's nest, riles her up. So what do? They jump on howlers and they make a beeline straight for his ship and the temple. The pacing on the show, the back and forth, the cross motivations by characters, the underdevelopment of the female characters, that's another whole thing. With all the representation of women and women of color and all the roles, the lack of any kind of character depth, characters that already were done, that you could build on what went before, that wasn't done with this show. And so again, just in conclusion, I just have to say that I'm overall disappointed because the potential was there, but there wasn't developed. So anyway, those are my comments. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.